All right, so chapter 10. When we got to the boys' home, there were people in the driveway with cameras to take pictures of us. Sanders opened up the back door. People crowded close and shouted questions, but my chest and head hurt too much to answer. I balled up on the back seat. Hey, where's your daddy, kid? How long you lived in that cave? Where'd you bury your father? Tell us about it. Sanders grabbed me under the armpit, lifted me onto my tiptoes. He leaned down close to my ear. You screw up, kid, and I'll squeeze you till your head pops off. I watched the sidewalk pass under my feet while Sanders pulled me along. Cameras flashed and people yelled at me. Officer, can he talk? Has he been educated at all? I heard Sanders reply. He's a little militia kid. He don't know much of anything. Your daddy ever kill anybody, kid? Does he have any relatives? Hey, kid, is it true you lived in a tree? We were soon inside the boys' home, and the flash bulbs and shouting of reporters faded behind us behind the front door. Sanders stopped, and my eyes saw the tips of shoes in front of me. I looked up to see Mr. Gene. Now, what happened to Mr. Gene the last time Moon encountered him?
Right in the nose.
Right between the legs. Moon hit him right in the crotch, and Mr. Gene dropped, and that's when Moon ran off to the woods again. Moon, he said. I didn't reply. You best get some restraints on this boy before I let him loose, Sanders said. Oh, I don't think he's going anywhere, Mr. Gene replied. Unless he knows how to buzz that front door open, he can bounce off these walls all day long. Sanders released me and I dropped to the floor. He's all yours then. Kid's an animal. He pissed his pants and I gotta clean my back seat for the second time. I tried to rub my shoulder where Sanders had been squeezing me, but the constable slapped my hand and went, Don't you move a finger, he spat. Sanders looked back at Mr. Gene. I'm telling you now, this kid will be on you like a wet cat. You don't tie him down. My stomach felt queasy and my head was still throbbing. I wanted to lie down and sleep. I'm not going to whip up on anybody, I said to the floor. Sanders left and Mr. Gene took me to the back room and stood me in front of a giant black man. Now this here is Mr. Carter, he said. He's the watchman here at Pinson. He'll take you from here. My stomach hurts, I said. I bet it does, Mr. Gene said, like he didn't believe me. I know all about that stomach. We've seen just about every trick in the book here at Pinson. Isn't that right, Mr. Carter? That's right. Mr. Carter, will you get this boy a uniform and show him to the shower room? After that, you can show him to his bunk. Mr. Carter nodded and began to lead me away. And Mr. Carter, Mr. Gene said. We stopped and turned around again. Moon will be wearing our special color for the time being. I'll fix him up, Mr. Carter said. What color do you think they're going to put on Moon?
Yellow.
Yellow? Why yellow?
Because it's, well, no. I think they'll put it on orange.
Orange?
Because it's the easiest color to see in the dark.
Easiest color to see in the dark. I would also say that sometimes one of the reasons prisoners wear stripes or wear bright orange like that is so if they escape, they're easy to spot, right?
They take it off
Possibly. Caitlin, please close that up. Thank you.
you.
I'll fix him up, Mr. Carter said. Mr. Carter pointed me through a door on my right and we turned left down a hall. Soon we came to a closet where we stopped. He opened the door and from a top shelf got a one-piece uniform that was the color of orange flagging tape. He handed it down to me. Now you don't give us any trouble and we'll let you wear a white one. What size shoes you wear? I don't know. He knelt down and dug into a cardboard box and pulled out some white canvas tennis shoes. Take these with you and we'll swap them out if they don't fit. I'll round up a jacket for you. Put it in your locker later on. I took the shoes and backed up as he came from the closet and shut it. We continued on until we came to a steel door that Mr. Carter had to unlock with keys that hung from his belt. Once we passed through, I heard the sound of boys shouting. He locked it behind us and we turned right and kept walking. You have boys in cages in here? Cages? Like jail? No cages like jail. I like that Moon calls them cages because from Moon's experience, he uses cages to trap animals, right? And a jail cell is kind of like a cage. We turned left again and walked down another hall until Mr. Carter pushed open a door and motioned for me to go in. Get a shower and get dressed. There's towels above the sink in there. I'll be out when you're done. You had lunch yet? No, sir. Well, the rest of the boys already ate. I'll see what I can find for you. I walked into the empty shower room and I looked around. I saw the stall and remembered how Earl had turned the silver knobs to get the water out. After placing my new clothes on the floor, I stripped naked and stepped under the shower head. I watched the nozzle as I turned the knob and suddenly icy cold water pounded my face. I sucked in my breath and I let the water run over me for a few seconds before I reached up and turned it off. When Mr. Carter came back, I was waiting in the middle of the floor with my new uniform and shoes on. He gave me a sandwich and bent over and picked up the clothes Earl had found for me. When he walked back out into the hall, he tossed my jail clothes into a trash can and wiped his hands on his pants. The next room he took me to was full of numbered bunk beds, each one with 2 lockers next to it. There was a door against the far wall that led outside of the play yard with trailers in it. There was another to my right that I reasoned would open back up into the shower room. Out the windows, I saw boys running about and playing. Now, I got 21 residents here, so chances are you're going to find a friend. It ain't so bad you follow the rules. I nodded. You know how to read, kid? I nodded again. Good, then go find bed 18. That's going to be your home for a while. He walked out. I wandered along until I found bed number 18. It was a top bunk, and I crawled up onto it, and I unwrapped my sandwich. I chewed it slowly and watched the boys. I was hungry, but it wasn't long before the loneliness started creeping up over me again, and I wrapped what was left of the sandwich, and I laid down to sleep. I missed the part where he said he gave him the sandwich. Either way. Mr. Carter came back into the room after an hour. He shook my shoulder and pain shot down my arm. I leaned back. Something wrong with your arm, kid? Sanders squeezed it, I said. Let me see. I sat up. I unzipped my uniform and I pulled it to my waist. He studied my shoulder for a moment and then reached out and touched the blue area with his fingers. Where he pressed, the skin turned red and then blue. Where he pulled his finger away, he shook his head. That's Sanders. He's trouble. I got some cousins in Sumner County that say he ain't easy to deal with. You want to put some ice on it? No, sir. I'm okay. Mr. Carter watched me for a while and I zipped up again. Boy, you're built like a squirrel. Pap said I could climb like one too. I bet you could. I ain't seen many white boys with muscle like that. It's from working. He picked up the sandwich I hadn't finished. Must not be from eating. I'll finish it later, I said. He tossed it a few feet into the trash can. That's all right. We got supper coming pretty soon. You'll get all you can eat then. He leaned against the bunk behind him and stuck his hands in his pockets. You're all over TV, you know. I shrugged. They say you're mean as a snake. You don't look so mean to me. I lay back down on bed and I pulled the blanket up to my chin. People keep trying to catch me all the time and I haven't done anything. Before my pap died, he told me to head to Alaska. Said there were more people like us up there. More squirrely people with long hair? No, sir. More people that hate the government. Mr. Carter smiled and nodded. Oh, government haters. That's right, all them government haters up there. That's what he said. How you gonna get to Alaska? Walk, I guess. Mr. Carter laughed. You ain't off to such a good start. Well, as soon as I get out of here, I will be. Mr. Carter smiled and shook his head. You don't get it, do you? They ain't gonna let you out of here unless somebody comes for you. Well, I figure I won't have much of a problem busting out of here once I get to feeling better. Mr. Carter's face grew serious. He pulled his hands from his pockets and took a step toward me. Listen, no more fooling around. Don't you be talking like that anymore. You're gonna get yourself in a heap more trouble than you're already in. All right, I said. All right, what? All right, I won't talk about it anymore. Chapter 11. Ooh. Chapter 11. The rest of the boys came crowding into the room just after Mr. Carter left. I lay quietly on my bunk and I watched them file through the play yard door and spread out towards their own beds. One of them happened to glance up and see me. He stopped and his eyes grew wide. Hey! He yelled, it's the cave boy! The rest of the boys heard him and they all looked at me. I lay there and I didn't move. It is him, someone yelled. That kid they talked about on TV. Yeah, it's the wild boy. I watched as everyone gathered around me. I paid the most attention to the tallest boy who seemed to be moving through the others to get closer. In a moment, he was standing before me, staring at my face, poking from the blankets. You that wild kid? I don't know, I said. You the one that got arrested yesterday? Yeah. He turned to the others and then to me again. You don't look so tough. I sized him up. He was about twice my weight and height. I could whip you, I said. His face went red. He reached out to grab me, but I was ready for him. I swung my arm from under the blanket, and I hit him open-handed right across the face. At the same time, I leaped up and I stood on my bunk. The boys cheered and began gathering closer. The big kid recovered and he grabbed for my feet. I danced around the top of the bed and avoided his hands for a few seconds, but he finally got me and I fell onto the mattress. He dragged me toward him and I took my free foot and I slammed it against the other, knocking his fingers between the knobs of my ankles. He yelled and let go. About that time, I heard something smack against the hall door, and the crowd grew silent. I rolled onto my bag, and I propped myself onto my elbows, and I looked in the direction of the sound. It was Mr. Carter there, who was standing there holding a club. Everybody to their bunks, right now. Y'all stand there until supper time I hear another word. Everyone began to find their bunks. The boy who had come after me was 3 bunks toward the door on the bottom. He turned and gave me a mean stare. Hal Mitchell, Mr. Carter said, I want you in the center of the floor. Hal moaned and stepped to the middle of the room and faced Mr. Carter with his jaw set tight. It looked like somebody had painted a red hand on his cheek. Hal, what happened? When that little runt popped me across the face. Who? Hal rolled his eyes at the ceiling. The cave boy. His name's Moon. Whatever. Mr. Carter walked towards Hal. Why'd he slap you? Hal raised one shoulder like he didn't care. I don't know. Mr. Carter towered over him. I don't imagine you were provoking him. Hal shrugged. He'll sleep outside tonight. No supper. Hal set his jaw tightly and stared at Mr. Carter. What? Mr. Carter didn't change his expression, but pointed to the door leading to the play yard. Outside. Are you serious? Now. You can't do that. Says who? Says... Well, you just can't. Now! Mr. Carter's voice boomed, and I thought I saw Hal jump a little beneath his uniform. Hal began to walk toward his bed. Where are you going? Get my blanket and my pillow. It's cold out there. Next time you ask me first, you hear? I saw Hal's face go red. I might. The room was silent. Hal reached for his pillow, but Mr. Carter took 2 steps, grabbed him by the shirt collar, lifted Hal like a scarecrow, and dragged him across the room. He hung there, red-faced, coughing against the shirt that pressed into his throat. In less than 2 seconds, the door was flung open, and he was shoved outside. Mr. Carter walked over to the bed and grabbed the blanket and pillow. He returned to the door, threw him out into the yard, pulled the door shut, and turned to face the room. He pressed his fingers together and cracked his knuckle. I catch any of you letting him back in here, you'll be spending the night out there too. Now go back to your business. Ms. Broomstead said she'll ring the supper bell in 10 minutes. Mr. Carter walked out and I lay on my side and watched everyone. I'd never been with so many people my own age. All their talking and moving around made me dizzy. I rolled over and stared at the ceiling until I heard the bell ring. I climbed off my bed and I followed the other boys through the hall and into a large room with 2 long tables. On the left side was the kitchen, all caged behind thick wire. Mr. Jean stood on a platform and began to say some stuff into the microphone. Halfway through his speech, the boy next to me poked me in the ribs with his elbow. It's a prayer, he said. Look down and shut your eyes. After the prayer, 2 boys I had seen earlier took bowls of food from the slot in the kitchen wire and set them on the tables. There was even more food in the boys' home than in jail. We had mashed potatoes, ham, rolls, salad, iced tea. You ate as much as you liked. If you ran out, there was always more. I never seen somebody eat as much, the boy next to me said. I kept eating and I didn't answer. My name's Kit Slit, he said. I turned to him and sized him up. He was even skinnier than me and so fair-skinned that he reminded me of a bull minnow. I might have thought he was sick if he hadn't been sitting up and talking to me like he was. The thing most unusual about him was that he barely had any hair. What hair he did have was as white as spider weaving and seemed that it would blow away like dandelion seeds if you got him in the wind. When I was finally able to swallow everything, I said, Moon Blake, to him. I didn't notice when the other boys started returning their plates to the kitchen. Kid had to tap me on the shoulder. Come on, Moon, he said, it's time to go. My plate still had some mashed potatoes left. I saw all the others walking past me and out of the dining hall. Do we have to? I still got some left. Most boys go to the rec room now. We could play ping pong and watch television. I took one more quick bite and then I got up and returned my plate too. I followed Kit to the rec room, but when we passed through the door that led out of the dining hall, Mr. Carter tapped me on the arm. Come with me, Moon. Mr. Jean wants to see you. What for? I asked. I don't know. He's the boss. I don't ask questions. Are you scared of him? Mr. Carter scrunched his face. Come on, he said. All right, what do you think Moon's opinion of the boys' home is?
Good.
Why would the boys' home be good for Moon?
Because he,
What's there that he's never had before?
Friends.
Friends,
I'm surprised he had
good food.
good food,
Lots
gets
of
to watch
food.
TV,
Oh,
play
yeah,
some
TV.
ping pong. Right, he's got all these kids. He's never been around kids his own age. And if you think back to earlier in the story, he was super lonely. His dad died, and he's all by himself. And suddenly he's thrown into this boys' home where it's all boys, all his own age, with good food, with TV, with ping pong. They got showers, beds. Dude's got it made.
But